Will you and your friends sit down for a chilling RPG experience? Can you survive the night?
Hey crafters, you ready for Crafttober? Yeah, I got a great one for you today. Okay, we're gonna do a creepy scenario called Aqualung, and it's from Survive the Night. So if you're a player and you're watching this, get out of here. You don't wanna see this, it's gonna ruin it for the scenario for you, so get out of here, okay? All right, we let those players get out of here. Now us GMs can talk, all right? So we're gonna build out the map from Aqualung, and here's the scenario as it kind of plays out. These people wake up, they're in the sewer, and they can't get out, they're trapped, they have to find a key to get out, and so they've got and there's a killer in here called Aqualung, and he's totally equipped for the water. But because the thing is, the water level is going to slowly rise in this complex, and you either got to get out of here or you're going to drown. So you're either going to drown, or Aqualung's going to get you, or you're going to get mangled in one of these deadly traps. So this is a death trap, essentially a death trap dungeon, right? So this is really going to try the players, and they're going to be lucky to get out of here. So, but that just what makes these scenarios fun, right? It's that kind of horror movie vibe. You know, these are just regular Joes. They're not superheroes or that kind of thing, and they're just regular people stuck in this sewer using their modern day skills to try to get out of here. So this is going to be super fun build, and what we're going to do is we're going to build out the sewer. I'm going to do it super cheap, super easy, so it's going to be really great. Anybody who is not really even a crafter can do this. You don't have to be a great crafter or anything, and it's going to be, I'm going to keep it cheap, so it'll be nice and inexpensive for this one-shot kind of thing if you want to run it, right? Of course, I'm going to run it multiple times, but hey, I'll keep it and run it multiple times, so you can do that too. But if you just want to run it one shot for your group, it's not going to break the bank, all right? So let's hit my table, I'll show you the map, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do, and we'll get started crafting the subterranean death trap for Aqualung. Yeah.
Now, as I said, we're going to be doing the Aqualung scenario from Survive the Night game, and you're going to want to pick that up because I'm not going to tell you about the adventure in these videos. I'm just going to basically show you the build and that kind of thing. So if you want to pick up the adventure yourself, make sure you head to the website. I'll have the link below the video. Okay, crafters, let's get started. So here is the Aqualung map. It's a death trap dungeon. It's fairly small, so it's a fairly easy build. The most difficult thing about the dungeon really are the kind of circular areas, but as I'm going to show you, these aren't any problem at all. But what we're going to start with, we're going to start the regular hall sections of the video. So we're going to break that up, right? And so here's how we're going to break it up. We're going to have 2 sections for that top hall, 2 more for the left hall, 3 for the bottom hall, 2 more for the right hall, and then 2 more for the hall going horizontally there. Now the smaller hall, you will just build it the same way as we do the larger halls. I'm going to do that 2 inches, and the other halls are going to be 3 inches wide. And they're going to be 3 inches wide because I wanted a water channel going through the tiles. So let's hit our table and we'll start building this. And I'm going to show you how cheap and easy this build really is. Alright, like I said, I'm going to try to keep this build as cheap as possible. I'm going to use this foam core from the Dollar Tree, and it's $1 a sheet. So we're going to use like 4 sheets. So that's just $4 right there. So pick those up. Also, you notice I got the black, which you wouldn't have to use the black, but the black is going to save us a lot of painting. So I would recommend picking up the black if you can, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to cut the hall sections, and they're going to be 9.5 inches long. Once we add the borders on the halls, they'll be 10 inches, actually 10 inches long. So that'll work out just perfectly, right? Now we're going to do 2 1-inch strips, and I'm going to apply those to the board, and you'll see here in just a second how I do that. Now, if you're not familiar with cutting foam board, it's very, very easy, okay? Now, what the pieces we're doing today, the straight pieces, are just super easy to do. You just use a ruler, preferably a metal ruler, and a very sharp X-Acto knife. You want to make sure that the blade is sharp enough to cut through the foam core, through both sides of paper and the foam core without tearing the foam core in the center. If you have a dull blade, it tends to tear it. So if you're starting to get some resistance on that, you might want to change out the blade, okay? So you just drag the X-Acto knife along the edge of the metal ruler, and you have your pieces and you're all ready to go. Alright, so let's do this construction. Here's my 9.5 inch long tile here, and I'm going to glue the 1-inch strip there to it, and I'm using white glue to give me a little more work time because I want to line it up exactly with the tile here. because I'm put walls on these and I don't want it to be over the edge and kind of mess up the edge there. So I'm using the white glue to give me extra time. And I'll just use my X-Acto knife and cut the edge off there, just like that. And I'll glue the second strip. Now I'm doing this because I want channels. This is like a sewer, and I want channels in the tiles themselves. So that's why I'm adding that extra strip. And they glue there nice and easily there with the white glue. Just cut the excess off. And there I have my tile, but I want to put edges around it. So I use my Sure Bonder hot glue gun. And I've cut these strips. They're 3/4 of an inch wide. And I'm going to kind of actually measure these strips and cut it with the X-Acto knife. I'm going to use a sharp X-Acto knife on these. And then I'll just glue it to the edge there. And that'll give me the 2.5D effect, which is you simulate the walls by using short walls, right? So they don't get in the way of your play. That's the whole philosophy behind 2.5D that I came up with years ago. And we'll glue that on. And we got the other side there. Now we just need the ends. And cut them the same way. Now you may have noticed that these are very kind of Wylockian in nature, right? What I mean by that is Wylock's Armory does a very similar technique to this with his tiles. They're a little more modular than what I'm doing here because I'm actually doing just the separate tiles, but it's very similar to his technique. Okay, so I'm going to measure that again. And like I say, when you put these end walls on, it's actually going to make the tile 10 inches long in total length as opposed to the 9.5. That's why we cut the tile the 9.5. Alright, so now we got all our walls on the tile, and we have a completed sewer tile here for the hallways for the dungeon. I thought it'd be fun to have a variant tile to break up the monotony, so I kind of broke the edge where the water channel goes, and then you'll see what we add to add some interest to this. Alright, so here's my tile and the broken area you can see, and I've got this construction sand, which is essentially sand with different size aggregate in it, okay? And it's all called all-purpose sand. So I'm just going to put my white glue in that channel there. Fill that in. So it'll look like the channel's broken, right? That'll be really cool. So we'll just pour that in, let that dry for a little bit. We dumped out the excess. I'm actually going to add another layer, and that'll take it pretty much up to the top of the channel, and it'll really look like that's just a kind of a broken area of the channel. So really cool, really cool. We have our tile constructed, so now comes the time to paint it. So now I need to cover up these white areas that are on the foam core, right? So I'm using black acrylic paint mixed with white glue, okay? And so that will kind of harden this up a bit. So it's a nice technique to do. It kind of seal the foam and harden it up a bit. So that's why I'm doing that. Just mix it with the white glue and just fill in those edges. And you'll end up with essentially a totally black tile that you can use instead of having to spray paint this. You can do it this way, and it's already mostly covered in black paper anyway, so you don't have to paint the whole thing. So that's really nice. And just finish that up, and we'll be good. Get those edges, and you can do a little bit on the tile itself if you want. There we go. Nice. We'll let that dry up. Once your black is dried, you can move on to the painting phase, and we're doing a very similar thing here. I'm using my white glue and then my pewter gray acrylic craft paint and a damp sponge that I'm just dipping in the gray paint and the glue, and this will do the same kind of effect. I'm getting a nice kind of cement look there. This is going to be, I'm kind of simulating a sewer, and it's going to be like cement. So yeah, and you can get those little spaces that are hard to get with the sponge by using a paintbrush that's kind of, I like to use a paintbrush that's kind of destroyed, on the end. It's all splayed and everything at the end. So just kind of push that up against the surface, and you get a nice kind of broken, technique there, color. So yeah, just really easy. And looking good. So let's fill all that in. And then you can use your sponge and finish it up. Get those edges. Kind of work your way out, start inside and then work your way out, so you're not grabbing all the wet paint, because then you gotta, try to avoid holding it. So it's better to start on the interior and work your way out. And there we go. So looking good. So that glue mixed with the paint will harden it up a little bit. So a nice little technique. It'll soak into that paper that's covering the foam core and harden it up a little bit. Nice. I'm going to use a secondary color to make this look like concrete. I'm going to use this mauve dust. Okay, okay, I'm just having fun there. All right, so I'm going to paint, get that on my sponge and kind of stipple it on there. And I like the color because it kind of looks like a concrete color. You know, it's not just gray, because concrete's not really just gray. It looks kind of, you know, sometimes pinkish or sometimes, you know, tan and, you know, other colors. So I hate just using like light gray. I think it looks more like concrete if you use this kind of color like this. This is a sewer, so I wanted to muck this up a bit, right? And I'm going to use kind of these different colors, this kind of yellowy brown, burnt sienna, and then like a kind of a muted green. And I'll give a nice kind of yuck look to this sewer. So I thought that'd be a fun little aspect to add there. One last trick to finish up these tiles. Okay, you see it bends a little bit. So what I'm going to do when it dries, so I'm going to add some white glue to the back. And this is kind of a technique that Wylock does, another technique that Wylock does. And he paints the white glue on the back and let it dry for 24 hours. And this will actually straighten the little bit of warping that happens to the tiles. It'll straighten it out. So it's a really cool effect. It also kind of strengthens it up a bit. So you're getting a kind of a 2-for-1 deal there. One last thing before we conclude this episode. You see the large square room there, squarish room. I'm going to make that room a 9.5 by 11. And we're going to do all the same techniques that we did for the hall tiles. I'm going to have the kind of raised areas around the edge of the tile. I'm going to have walls around the tile, just like the hallway tiles. You know, I'm going to color it the same way and all that kind of stuff. So it's all just the techniques that we've seen just earlier in the video. And that's it. Yeah, that's all you need to do to complete that room. Now, in the scenario, the water rises in the scenario, right, which is a really interesting thing that happens, but how do you represent that in the game? How do you represent that on these tiles? And I'm going to show that in a later vid. Okay, so stay tuned. Watch this series. I'm going to show how you can easily do the rising water for these tiles. So a very interesting question, but with a simple solution.